evening and thanks very much for joining us. As Ontario's daily COVID-19 case count soars to record levels, the Thunder Bay District Health Unit reported 2 more local infections today. That brings the tally to 26 new cases over the past week and 143 since the pandemic began. And in response to those concerning figures, Mayor Bill Morrow is once again urging residents to adhere to all health and safety protocols or risk another shutdown. Ryan Benazzo has more.
This week's spike in cases has confirmed what we thought and clearly illustrated how easily this virus is spread.
In a City of Thunder Bay Facebook video message to residents, Mayor Bill Morrow says we need to be more vigilant than ever in following public health protocols. The District Health Unit reported 2 additional COVID-19 cases on Thursday. That's now a record 7 straight days with at least 1 new case. There have been 26 new infections in total over the past week. Most relate to an outbreak at Adult and Teen Challenge residential operations, but the point of exposure is unknown for 2 people, including one of these 2 latest cases. That suggests community spread.
It's a bit easier, over the course of the summer to get a bit complacent, and this will hopefully, shock us back into realizing that we're still in the middle of this thing. We're in a second wave. For me, I believe we got to bridge this through to the spring. March, April, see where we are then. Stay tight, stay vigilant, adhere to the healthcare protocols, trust in the mask. This is the biggest and best thing that we can all do.
If those protocols aren't adhered to, Morrow fears we may risk a second shutdown. That, he says, would be devastating for the local economy.
These 2 pieces are inextricably linked. The healthcare piece and the business sector and the economy are inextricably linked. If we want the business sector to be strong and healthy and to remain open, we need to keep our numbers low, or we could see another provincially mandated shutdown.
While we're not at that point yet, the mayor says it's up to area residents to keep it that way. Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
A new shipyard agreement announced in Hamilton Thursday will bring jobs to Thunder Bay. Heddle Shipyards has entered into a long-term agreement with Seaspan, a Vancouver-based shipyard. The agreement will see Heddle fabricate ship components for Seaspan, and some of that work will be done here in the city, bringing new high-paying jobs to Thunder Bay. Over the next decade, Heddle Shipyards will be the primary supplier for ladders, gratings, and handrails for 2 joint support ships being built for the Canadian Navy, one of which is already under construction. The only thing that isn't clear is how much of that work will end up here.
We need our slice of the pie here in Ontario when it comes to these large icebreakers. This gives certainty to these hardworking folks here for not a year, but for 10 years. 10 years of good paying jobs. We need our fair share here in Ontario. And when we get our fair share here in Ontario, it benefits Newfoundland, it benefits the people of BC, it benefits Thunder Bay.
Meanwhile, Rod Phillips, Ontario's Minister of Finance, was asked about the possibility of more work coming to the Bombardier plant in the city. Also, what the status is on the funding needed to ensure future streetcar orders for the TTC and other projects.
When it comes specifically to that plant, and it's been talked about today, important projects like transit here in Hamilton, or like the subway project that we have endorsed, $27 billion of growth in terms of subway systems across the GTA. Those are all projects that are ready to go from our perspective, and we do need our federal partners to step up. We'll be ready to order plenty of train cars, plenty of LRT cars, plenty of subway cars, and Bombardier would be just a fantastic place to get them from.
Conservation authorities across the province say changes being introduced by the Ford government will put their work at risk. The province has introduced a number of changes to the Conservation Authorities Act as well as the Planning Act that significantly limit or completely change the role of conservation authorities. Avery McRae explains.
The changes proposed deep inside Bill 229, which was introduced on November 5th as a part of the province's 2020 budget, could have drastic impacts on conservation authorities across the province. Donna Blunt is the chair of the Lakehead Region Conservation Authority, and she has one simple goal.
The Conservation Authority's main goal is to help people understand the importance of staying out of the flood zones and the flood areas, hazardous areas.
That may not be easy with the proposed changes to both the Conservation Authorities Act and Planning Act. Key changes include removal or hindering of the Conservation Authority's role in regulating development and permit planning applications, allowing the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry to make direct decisions on permit appeals without watershed data or expertise from conservation authorities. Also, board members could be instructed to make decisions in the best interest of municipalities, not the Conservation Authority.
The present Conservative Ford government seems to be putting business interests and developer interests ahead of the environment and science-based decisions, I feel.
Blunt says these changes would pose risk to Ontario's environment. The science-based watershed information helps to steer development to appropriate places where it will not harm the environment or create risks for people. Blunt says she's hoping to work with the province to revise and amend some of the changes with hopes of extending the deadline to do so.
They're looking at the effective date being January 1st, 2022. We're hoping that they extend that at least by one more year to January 1st, 2023 in order to give the conservation and conservation authorities and municipalities to work together on a lot of these issues and getting organized.
The authorities are responsible for the protection of land, water, and natural habitats in their communities, which has been magnified in recent years with the growing concern over climate change. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Back to COVID-19, Ontario health officials released new projections today, and they say we could see a staggering 6,500 new cases a day by mid-December, unless strong steps are taken to limit the spread of the virus. Colin DeMello reports.
The latest numbers make it clear COVID-19 will encroach on Christmas.
This is a critical time for our province.
New modeling data shows if cases in Ontario rise at the rate of 5% per day, we could see 6,500 cases every day by mid-December. And nothing will change without intervention.
You'll continue to see growth in cases. You'll see the higher levels of ICU use probably hit. You'll see the mortality continue to climb in long-term care homes, and I do not believe that there's a way that the cases will change without action.
The action should be coming out of Queen's Park, but today, Premier Doug Ford is coming under fire for his framework to slow the spread of the virus after new revelations that the province ignored public health advice and drastically raised the thresholds for new restrictions.
The best advice to keep Ontarians safe was not listened to. And the framework that's been created to help reopen the economy has not been adequately informed by science.
The government's color-coded system was first introduced on November 3rd, and the Minister of Health says it was based on advice from public health experts.
The numbers that were provided to us as recommendations by the Public Health Measures Table, by Dr. Williams, and by the local medical officers of health.
And so the numbers that the public saw, those were part of the original recommendations?
Yes.
But documents obtained by CTV News show these numbers were altered. In late October, the criteria to enter the red stage was much lower. 40 cases per 100,000, a positivity rate of 2.5%. In early November, that was changed to the following: 100 cases per 100,000 and a positivity rate of 10%.
I think it's really clear that we can't trust Mr. Ford, we can't trust the Minister of Health. They have lost the trust of Ontarians. They've lost the trust because they lied to the people of Ontario in the midst of a global pandemic.
There are now calls from the medical community to lower the threshold, which the government says is a possibility.
Nothing in this pandemic is concrete. Nothing stays the same.
In the meantime, the situation only continues to worsen.
A 63-year-old Thunder Bay man has been hit with an impaired driving charge for the second time in 3 days. The latest charge comes after a driver was found unconscious in his vehicle on Wednesday night on Red River Road. When awoken by paramedics, the man refused treatment and drove away, and police caught up with him as he was exiting his vehicle at his Current River home. Testing determined he was impaired by drugs. The same man was arrested and charged with being impaired last Sunday. He was remanded into custody following a court appearance this morning. And Canadian author Eric Walters, who's published dozens of novels for young adults, paid a virtual visit with students at Claude Garton Public School Thursday. The visit was aimed at sparking student interest in reading and writing. Walters presented to 2 different classrooms with students in grade 3 to 8 taking part. He spoke about his writing and how he started his career as a teacher before writing a book for his students. It was that book that launched his career as an author and led to him having more than 100 published books.
They were really, really good listeners as he talked about some of the books that he's written, and about he runs an orphanage in Kenya, which was news to all of us, and so I think that that's something that we're going to research a little bit more. I was excited to see how carefully they were listening, and they were really inspired by the amount of books that he's written and just the way that he writes.
To learn about how he started off as a teacher, and then he started writing books for his class because they weren't interested in reading and writing.
With all the restrictions in place with COVID, I think it's really nice to see that we can change up our daily routine and have a guest just for a more intimate experience.
Walter's latest book, The Boy Who Moved Christmas, was published in October. And the Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign is officially wrapped up and raised a record-breaking total of nearly $75,000 for local charities. Members of the Thunder Bay firefighters representing Toys for Tots and the George Jeffrey Children's Foundation revealed the total at the Tim's location on Sibley Street. The COVID-19 pandemic apparently had very little effect on the support from the community for this year's campaign. Over $37,000 was raised to kickstart the Toys for Tot fundraiser. The organization does not have a set goal this year, but the head of the toy drive, Paul Penna, says the money raised has put them about a quarter of the way to an anticipated amount. The CEO of the George Jeffrey Children's Center, Tina Bennett, says the support they received was amazing.
We're just so pleased at how the community came out for us this year in the middle of a pandemic, how supportive all the Tim's staff were. They're great employees with all the COVID restrictions. They still made this work. And to all the volunteers that came out to decorate cookies and buy those cookies and eat them and share them, it's just incredible.
It's huge. I mean, $37,488. It's massive. We expect that the need this year, perhaps even greater than the last few years. So it's huge. It's huge for us. We're very thankful.
Meanwhile, representatives from the local Tim Hortons franchises say they're thrilled to be able to support two organizations that do so much for area children.
Great news, amazing to hear.
Yeah.
I must have averaged about 4 Smile cookies per week while that was going on. I just got